If you're finding value in these conversations, consider supporting Elvin and Joe. As a supporter, you'll get early ad-free access, plus exclusive leadership-focused content. It's only $5.99 a month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or even gift a subscription to a colleague at edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you on another episode here of the EdUp Experience. And boy, I am just shooting bullets today. Can't even get the words out of my mouth. That's how excited I am to tell you about EdUp editorials. I keep saying it on every episode, and it's a wonder that more people won't take advantage of it. That's why I have to keep plugging it. But the story goes like this. I wrote what I thought, my ego thought, was a fantastic article. I thought it was fantastic. And I went out and I shopped it around to what those of us in higher ed would call the industry trade publications, and none of them were interested. And I thought, well, why is that? Why is that? It sort of had a positive angle to it. There wasn't any negativity built around it. Maybe there wasn't journalistic enough. But I thought, why am I depending on others to get my work out? We do this podcast to give everybody a chance at the microphone. Why can't we start publishing our own articles to give our colleagues a chance to write what they want to write about what's going on at their institution? So we created EdUp editorials. And this is where you submit articles to us at the EdUp Experience, and we publish them and send them out and promote them to our worldwide audience. Maybe it's a program that you're launching. Maybe it's something that we should know about your business model. Maybe it's a leadership lesson your colleagues will benefit from. Sit down and write something for us at the EdUp Experience. No strings attached. We'll push it out to audiences across the globe and give you an opportunity to see your written word get as much space and attention as the spoken word that we do here on the podcast. So that's EdUp editorials. You can submit those articles to the easiest address ever at edupexperience.com. It can't be any easier than that. So write us up something, and that's enough of self-promotion. But really, we're doing that work for you all to get a chance to get your work out there. And again, today, nice transition. We have another president to add to our president series. This is an institution that, if you actually know the history, they had explosive growth over a period of time. And really, I would say, bringing a level of sophistication to enrollment and marketing and value, maybe long before others figured it out, if you know the story. And we're going to hear more from somebody that tells the story a whole lot better than me. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get him in right now. He's Tom Rametta. He is the president at Ultimate Medical Academy. Tom, welcome to an EdUp Mic. How are you?
Hey, thanks, Joe. Good to be here. Appreciate the warm introduction. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for being here, my friend. I was excited to talk to you because, and I say this all the time on the podcast for anybody that doesn't believe it, I'm a huge advocate for proprietary education. I think what we do, and I say we because I worked in for-profit proprietary education for 15 years proudly, and I think we serve a part of the market that needs what we do. And you see so many innovations today happening, and you go, boy, we used to do that 15 years ago. So before we get into that, Tom, tell us about UMA. Who do you serve? How do you serve them? And then we're going to come back around to what I said.
Sure. So UMA, Ultimate Medical Academy, nonprofit educational institution, really laser focused on preparing our students for careers in allied healthcare. So there's just a huge demand for allied healthcare professionals, and we've been focused on this for over 3 decades now. We just had our 30th anniversary last year. We're going into our 31st year now, and we do it both online, we do it on ground, we do it in a traditional B2C format. We do it in a B2B format. And, a lot of people don't really know what allied healthcare is. They don't know what that means. And those are basically the people that you work with when you first enter a medical setting and normally when you leave a medical setting. So those are, those are your dental assistants. Those are your health information management professionals. Those are your farm techs. Those are your, patient care technicians who are taking your vital signs. And, these are people who are providing both administrative support to healthcare, but also providing that bedside care when you're in a position, probably in your most vulnerable states in many cases, these people are right by your side helping you out.
Important, right? And we've seen huge growth in the healthcare sector, and we'll need more of it as the rest of us get a little bit older. But as a nonprofit, you've served students of all kinds, right? A nonprofit with a nonprofit status, the same as any other nonprofit university, but you've done it
Correct.
in a way that uses some of the best practices that we saw from for-profits and in proprietary education: speed, delivery, understanding the consumer, being student first. Just talk about the evolution of the model and maybe highlight some of the explosive growth that you've had over the years.
So I joined Ultimate Medical back in 2009. And at that time, we were primarily an on-ground organization. We had campuses in Clearwater, Florida, and Tampa, Florida. And
not bad places, by the way.
Not bad places, especially, around, January, February, March, pretty nice to be down there.
Mm-hmm.
And, we just realized at that time that there was a much bigger need than we could serve in the allied healthcare field than just being on ground. So we launched an online school in the middle of 2009. And Joe, honestly, there were a lot of, trials and errors in launching an online school, doing online healthcare education in the early days. And, over, a long period of time of really working closely with our students, with our employer partners, and with our team, we were able to figure out the right volume, the right cadence, the intensity of the support that was needed for students that were going into the allied healthcare programs. And when we chose allied healthcare, that was our strategy. We were going to stay in the allied healthcare realm. And, there's a lot of pressure to go upfield and, why don't you get into nursing? There's a lot of pressure to go into, adjacent, potentially other career areas and leverage our skill set. But there's just so much demand in allied healthcare. I think we got to stay focused on allied healthcare, and there's plenty to do in that. And it really comes down to understanding who your student is and the support that they need. Our students are primarily female, 90+% female. They are, generally in their mid-30s. Most of them are, Pell eligible students. They generally haven't had a ton of success in academic environments in the past. So they need a different type of support. They need support on the academic side with the curriculum, with the technology. And we provide that level of support sort of, both virtually and humans on the phone, which we have many of them. In addition, we really figured out that most of these students are dealing with a lot of other challenges, like many other adult learners, right? They have families, they have jobs, they are often, supporting relatives. They have other things in their lives that are drawing them away from their education. And that's where UMA steps in to really help sort of bridge those personal elements that are getting in the way with the academic challenges and helping them get through the program from end to end. And that starts with enrollment through financial aid to, our faculty and our learner services, and then ultimately our career services team, which is large and really, really on top of the game, helping our students get careers in healthcare.
Yeah. So, by the way, let me just bring in a sound because I think that's so awesome.
Amazing.
And my amazing button is reserved only for the coolest stuff. But It's fascinating to me because you had explosive growth. You were doing online learning at a scale that was sought after by many others in the industry, going, how are they doing that? I remember, because I was in some of those conversations at other schools, going, what are they doing down there that they're getting all this explosive growth? But I think, some of it's right place, right time, right messaging, right infrastructure, right messaging. And today I hear it's great, like when you hear things about wraparound student services. When you're servicing a population like you are, there was only ever wraparound student services. That's where it started, really. It started with schools like UMA, who focused so intently on the student, with this adult learner who was working, maybe coming from a lower economic background, who needed just an amazing amount of attention to get through and then get a job. So you have to create this secondary business infrastructure in career services. And now many schools, as we see the attention shift, and people are going, well, what's the ROI on this? They're going, oh, wow, maybe we should be investing in career services. It's been a fascinating pendulum to watch swing, because if you have that infrastructure and you can show that there's an ROI, eventually that's your greatest marketing asset you could ever have, isn't it?
That is. And, for me, the way I always think about like the three most important things at UMA, and it starts with compliance, right? Because compliance always comes first when you're working in an education environment. Right after compliance is student outcomes, and student outcomes meaning the student retains, the student graduates UMA, and then ultimately gets a job in healthcare. So, we measure ourselves based on our students who get jobs in healthcare in their field of study. And, we look to get our students jobs that meet their needs. So whether it's, a certain type of job, or a remote work job, or in a certain location, but it always has to be in their field of study. And then ultimately we have to do that in a way that's financially stable, so that we can continue to invest in the organization, invest in the student outcomes, prepare for a rainy day, and continue to build the organization to meet that demand for the healthcare shortage. And UMA today is, over 20,000 students, large, both on ground and online. And, we've seen really remarkable growth over the last couple of years. And, I attribute that to, our continued success around student outcomes and delivering that ROI. And, many of our students are coming from situations where they were maybe working in retail or a fast food environment or a hospitality environment, and it was a job, and they're trying to support their family on that. And, in many cases it was challenging, and they wanted something more. They wanted to prove to themselves something. They wanted to prove to their family something. And to get that support, get that credential from UMA, and then ultimately get a job working in a doctor's office or an insurance company or a hospital setting, that's not their ultimate destination, right? That's the start of their career. And for me, that's one of the most rewarding parts of the job is getting that start for them, being that catalyst, when in the past, maybe they haven't had much success in education environments.
Epic.
I love the work. I think it's so important. And today, it's interesting because, and this, we're seeing variance in people's understanding of whether they should go to college. And if they do, what type of degree should they get? And if they get this type of degree, what kind of ROI is there to it? What is interest like? Have you seen fluctuating interest? Are you having to convince students to say, hey, look, you know what, get your associate degree? And the student is saying, well, somebody told me I shouldn't go to college anymore. Or is it, I want to get my associate degree first, then, get to work and then figure out what's next? What are you hearing from students right now as we operate in a very confusing time in higher ed?
Students are really interested in career and technical training today. I mean, I would say it's resurging, but I think it's always been pretty strong. They're looking for, less debt. They're looking for job-ready skills. They're looking for different ways to go to school, whether it's online or hybrid, in person. We offer all of that for our students. So really, I think the focus on career training, skill-based training, faster paths through the education process to a credential, to a skill, it's in super high demand today. And it kind of speaks to that the ROI piece that you just mentioned, right? And there is a lot of question about the current traditional academic environment, the four-year, the traditional school, the process that I went through. And listen, I think that environment is great for a lot of people. It's not right for everybody. So with our students who are, not your 18-year-old student coming right out of high school, going to college, they definitely want a faster path to a return on that investment. And, these days, many of the 18-year-olds are looking for the same thing. They don't want to come out of school with, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. They want to start earning. They want a skill, and they want to start earning money.
I'm just looking at your LinkedIn. You post a lot about leadership, and I think having that brand's important, especially as a leader today, because you have so many eyes on you. But I love this little quote that you put out here, that lifelong learning, which we talk about a lot about lifelong learning. What does it mean? How do you define it? You say lifelong learning is about more than personal growth. It's about staying relevant, adaptive, and energized. What does that mean to someone today? Because lifelong learning is one of these things that it's very hard to define. What does that mean exactly? Does that mean you just take classes at Home Depot and that's lifelong learning? Does it mean that you need to upskill with a bunch of AI classes? Does it mean that you're available for continuous learning? When you think about lifelong learning, tell me what especially what relevance means these days.
For me, it means a lot of different things, right? And it really crosses between professional and personal, and it's very individual in nature, Joe. So for me, it does mean staying up on your field, which I'm an accountant by trade. I'm a data guy by schooling and by my initial profession. Never expected to be the leader of an organization. But I was fortunate to get into the role that I am today. And for me, as I was going through my first, decade at UMA, I was a student of UMA. I learned everything about the organization that I could. I used my role in finance, which kind of gives you sort of a pass to go into every department in the organization. And, I wasn't there with my, clipboard, looking for, looking, or my green, eye shade. I was there to learn, I was there to understand what the folks in admissions were doing and, what their challenges were, what got them excited. I was there to learn more about our students. I was there to, understand the investments we were making in career services. And when you get to that point in the process, now there's another party involved, right? Because it's you, it's the student, it's the employer partner. What are the opportunities there? So I took it upon myself in that role to really learn more about the organization, and I consider that part of my learning process. It also made the numbers come to life, right? It made it more interesting for me as I was going through the numbers. And then, outside of, being invested in the organization that you're working with or the industry, I really consider lifelong learning just an ability to kind of resist complacency, right? And, it's not easy. And, I certainly succumb to complacency quite often, and I got to really fight it. And whether that's with, technology and yes, taking an artificial intelligence course, whether you're 18 years old or 75 years old. It's fascinating stuff, and you can use that for work. You can use it for your personal life, and there's applications up and down. And then doing things that satisfy you personally as well. The beginning of last year, I started studying Spanish again. I wanted to brush up those skills. They had gone, really far into the recesses of my mind from my senior year in high school. And I just found that I was often around many Spanish-speaking individuals and, just wanted to be able to communicate with them, wanted to show some cultural respect. So started brushing up on my Spanish. And recently, at the beginning of this year, me and my wife started playing pickleball. So, and I'm not an athlete at all.
Let's go.
But it's a great sport. It's a lot of fun, and I would say at this point I can hold my own. Right? I'm not a beginner. I'm certainly not advanced, but can go out there and have a lot of fun. So, that to me, that's what lifelong learning is just continuing to invest in yourself and learn more about the world that you live in.
The answer to this question we'll never know, but if your wife misses a shot when you're playing with her, are you giving her a hard time in English or in Spanish? You don't have to answer. But you said something that really stands out to me, and we brought it up here, and it's the word complacency. And for leaders, it's such a hard word to contend with. I always tell and have told my staff as I've gone through the years that complacency is the enemy of urgency, right? If you're going to be a change maker, you can't be complacent, but complacency is this thing that kind of sneaks up on you and you don't see it coming. It just sort of like sets in and it makes itself at home and puts its feet up on your couch and turns the TV on. All of a sudden you go, wait a minute, it's been 6 months and we haven't done anything. How do you there's this old saying, especially in enrollment, where, it's easy to grow from a low number to a higher number and much harder to grow from a higher number to a little bit higher number. Yeah. Right. How do you stay fresh? How do you keep your staff operating with urgency when you know that complacency, 20,000, great number, guys, we did it. Let's just pack it in and go home. Like, how do you keep going? What do you do to keep fresh?
Well, it's a real, and I would love to hear your views on this as well. It is a real.
This is my podcast. I don't answer any of the hard questions.
Oh, okay. It is a real. It's a real challenge. And particularly when you are in a successful time period and you're growing and things are working well, then to introduce bigger challenges, more change in the organization. That gets harder to do. It really does. And you have to be surrounded by the right people, right? And for me, when I start getting complacent, my team will call me out and say, Tom, it's time for us to set some bigger goals for us in this organization. And I'll do the same for them as well. Yes, this is working great, but our ambition now is to get to 30,000 students. And are these same processes and systems going to hold up at 30,000 students? So, in terms of resisting complacency, I think you got to surround yourself with the right people. You also have to lean into the mission. And that really keeps me going. Thinking about the healthcare talent gap is a little scary on a personal basis. You walk into an urgent care today, or you walk into a hospital waiting room, and you see the long lines and you see the empty beds, and the beds aren't empty because there's no patients. The beds are empty because there's nobody there to take care of those patients. So you said this at the beginning. We're all going to have an increasing need for healthcare, and we do live in an aging population in the United States, and the shortage of healthcare workers is growing each and every year in pretty exponential numbers. Yikes! So, when I think about, my motivation, it's really about all those talented people out there who, who are working in jobs and hope that they get a job in healthcare someday. And UMA is that catalyst, the vehicle to get them from where they are to where they need to be to help us solve that healthcare talent gap. So, and with all that, when you're growing, we are servicing 20,000 students right now. When you are growing and changing at the same time, you also have to watch for organizational capacity as well. Make sure, and that's not an easy thing to do. And I talk to a lot of people about that. Like, how do I know when, how much is too much, right? And I'm not trying to run the organization with people's hair on fire, right? That's no good. You get burnt out that way. Also not trying to run the school in a way where people are falling asleep at their desks, right? You need to find that sweet spot for people where there's ambition, there's excitement, and you're kind of landing the organization in a place where people are driven to do hard work, but also feel like they're not overworked and they're rewarded and they are seeing the fruits of their labor. So complacency is a complex thing, and the best thing you can do is acknowledge it when you're feeling it or seeing it, and ask for help.
It's fuzzy math.
I like what you said too, because there's a delicate balance, and you've seen it and you're experiencing it as you move to 20,000 students, especially with churn. You don't have 4 years of don't have the 4 years that when you think about graduation rates and population. If you're growing a baccalaureate institution, you're going, boy, we got 2 years to build it, and we've got these other 2 years where the students are going to persist and our population's going to hold. Yeah. You've got these 18 to 24 months probably, and you're replacing students at a faster clip. That means you have to be really, really good at the front end stuff and interest in marketing and have really good programs and real good outcomes. So that speed, balancing that speed of churn with capacity, and also simultaneously, and you asked for my thoughts on complacency, is always that the business grows, and as the business grows, you add in people because of capacity. And as you add more people, things seem to be less urgent, or there's more, sometimes the bureaucracy itself tends to take over your adaptability, because you need more socializing. Higher ed, higher ed at large, we like to over-socialize. Like, we socialize things 7 ways from Sunday just to say that we've socialized it enough. And then you go, well, this business over here that's not in higher ed made a decision 6 weeks ago because they just had people that went, oh, yeah, that makes sense, and they just did it. But somehow in higher ed, we have to over-socialize. That's a really hard balance to navigate as a leader, especially one leader like yourself who's navigating over time. 2009 to 2025 is a long time to be a leader. So you're seeing the business move in different forms of itself, right?
Support the podcast trusted by higher ed leaders. Get early, ad-free access, and exclusive leadership content by supporting Elvin and Joe for only $5.99 a month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or gift a subscription at edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com.
It's fascinating, especially if you're acquiring other units, and which we have.
Yeah. And yes, there is a lot of consensus building in education. So
well said. It's very couth of you to say that.
Yeah, well, there is, and that's okay. And you got to go through the process, and you want to bring people along. Depending on what the decisions are and how big they are, how widespread they are, impacting our students or our employees. And we do a good job at that, but it does take time, and and sometimes, that, even for me, like, you got to really have the energy to do that, right? So and then it kind of, I'll do it. And then you fall back into the complacency, like, oh,
right.
Well, so then you just gotta really just be honest with yourself. And as you said, as the organization scale, the demands just scale. And, you're doing it because there's an urgent need in healthcare. You're doing it because the students need it. You're doing it because the team needs it, right? You're creating these growth environments for your team as well. And, those are the kind of things that get me excited, that help me bust through the complacency and, push from, the team and, you're bored and, you're up and running again.
Speaking of being honest with yourself, you have a part of your program is sort of get to know us first, where your students are coming in and they're not paying, if I understand it right, they're not paying until they get through an enrollment period and say, yeah, I really want this to be my place. And that is such a interesting benefit, especially when there's some risk involved on your end that the student says, you know what's not right. But you're saying, come to us if it is right. Talk about that program, its importance, and what it's done for you as an organization.
So we do have a provisional enrollment period, and we implemented that many years back at a fairly significant cost to the organization, because we just felt it was the right thing to do for our students. And in looking at certain trends, we found that certain levels of success and participation, particularly over the first 5 weeks, your first course at UMA, are a clear indicator of your ability to succeed in school at this time and persist through graduation. And if you don't show those indicators and you don't specifically request to persist and go on to the next course, then you have the option to leave UMA and at no cost, no Title IV debt, no obligation, and you're always welcome to come back and try, right? So we do have a lot of people who maybe didn't make it through the first course for whatever reason. It wasn't the right time. They weren't, they had too many other commitments, or they just didn't know what to expect initially going into it, and it was more than they thought they could handle at that time. So it was a decision that we made with the student, specifically in mind, and we feel like that's the right thing to do. And we feel fortunate as a school that we're able to do things that are very student focused and continue to maintain those student outcomes, maintain our financial stability, and also be highly compliant across the whole platform.
What about, give us a little bit of insight into frequency, like, how often are your classes starting? How often are you there when the student's ready, right? Because that's a big question of institutions today, especially those that are on a normal academic calendar, as you would, you tell the student, you've got to wait 3 months until this comes back around. You just go, they're on their phone and their Netflix show's coming up, and they're just skipping to the next one. Everybody's getting what they want right away. Talk about your cadences and how you service the student.
Yeah, so we do not have that typical fall, spring cadence. We offer generally, depending on how the calendar falls during the year, anywhere like 20 or 21 starting points a year. And it kind of rolls on a 3-week and 2-week cadence that align with our program starts, and then people are graduating at the same rate. And then we have 2 very big and fun graduations each year in the Tampa area. And then so we do traditional marketing and lead generation, inquiry generation for our students through brand efforts, through social media efforts, through search efforts. And you come to UMA and the first thing you do is meet with an admissions rep. You go through a fairly intense interview to gauge your interest and your readiness and your what program is going to be right for you, and you meet all the credentials to go to UMA, which you have to be a high school graduate to come to UMA as well. So, from there, you're enrolled in your program of choice, and you're paired up with a learner service advisor. And at the beginning, we keep the ratios very small with our learner services advisors and our students because that's a very intense period.
Yep.
And then as a student progresses and proves themselves, then we understand better what they're going to need going forward, right? And, not every student needs that same level of intensity going forward. So it is a very rigorous, high volume process. And, at 20 plus entry points a year, it's a machine that works well, but the whole thing is really imbued with this element of care. It really is. And you see it in all our student testimonials. You see it at our graduations. Our employees feel it. And, when we created our brand architecture and, we came up with sort of the sentiment that, UMA is really is all about education, but also about that other half of education, which is the care. And when people feel that, it makes a difference. And when we first started rolling that out, it resonated so well across the organization because it was, one, because it was real. People were doing it every single day. And two, because it left all this room, right? There was so much. You're never there, right? It's never done. And for us, that ripple effect of care, right? It starts with our employees, right? Employees are obviously vital to the organization. We have over 3,000 team members at UMA. They pass that care along to our students, and then who ultimately pass it on to the employer partners and into healthcare patients in the end. So you and I and many others are the beneficiaries of that care.
So important. I can't tell you how many times I hear somebody say something like, wow, that bedside manner or that person, wasn't so great. And you just go, that care that we expect is never more pronounced than it is when you're in a medical setting. And that person is able to deliver information or deliver some service to you, and you're made comfortable, because there is never a more high stress situation than when you have some type of medical thing going on and somebody makes you feel comfortable. So I'm so glad to hear that. And the brand itself, as we see the evolving landscape of artificial intelligence and make its way into every type of career that we see, including the medical profession, it's good to know that the care receives as much attention as everything else. And I think that's an important thing for us, maybe or for you to note, Tom, like AI is all around us. It's changing. But if we have to have the human part central to what we're doing, we know AI is going to change everything in health everywhere. But if we don't have that, if we're not humanistic and we don't have that care piece, we change in ways that aren't necessarily good.
So I like artificial intelligence. I'm a big fan of the tools that we use, and they help, accelerate things. They help with routine administrative tasks, and they absolutely have an important place in education and in healthcare. But both of those, education and healthcare, are very human endeavors. They really are, particularly healthcare, right? And if you think about that healthcare setting that you just talked about, the need to be empathetic when delivering sensitive news, you can't get that from artificial intelligence. Even if you did, you would know it wasn't real because it wasn't coming from a human, right? If you're dealing with fast-moving situations in an emergency room, or you're dealing with nonverbal communications or something where a human touch is actually needed, those are elements that technology just cannot replace. But what technology can do is free up people to provide those elements. So, I certainly believe in the profound impact of care. It's deeply personal, and it cannot be quantified by algorithms or machines. It's just, particularly in a healthcare setting, we've all been there, and there's just something really special about that.
Tom, we'd like to bring you back for a subscriber-only mini episode in just a few minutes, but I want to leave you with an open mic. Anything else you want to say about UMA, Ultimate Medical Academy? Anything that we didn't hit on? Anything you want to double down on? Anything that you just are it's at top of mind? Take a couple minutes. Tell us what you want to say.
So, I would talk about our students, because that kind of is what it's all about. And those are the people that, get me out of bed in the morning. Those are the folks that are drawn to these healthcare careers, both out of a sense of wanting to help others, but also, given the demographics of our students, they're doing it out of a sense of they want it more for themselves as well, and they want to prove to their family, their children, and to others that there is more for them out there. And UMA is absolutely the right place, a very high touch, personal, care infused model at the intersection of healthcare and education, where we focus on the mission. We focus on the student first. We focus on delivering the best education, the best set of skills, the best set of power and soft skills that we can give a student so that they can be successful in their healthcare careers. But we do all that acknowledging that these students are bringing a whole different set of challenges to UMA, being a 35-year-old single mom, and trying to balance a full-time job, trying to balance a family and other pressing needs. So they need something different. And for us, if you think about where these people are starting from and where they end up, it's just so, for me, that's what that's the mission, right? That's what really gets me going every single day, thinking about our students. So it's a unique set of students, and when we chose to be in allied health and focus on allied health care programs, we also accepted the demographic of student that was normally going to be going into that role, and we built a whole organization around supporting these people and making them successful. And it's been just super rewarding. And for me, graduation is one of the times where I get to spend the most time with our students, and we throw like one of the most fun inspirational graduations out there twice a year. But really getting to meet our students, meet their families, hear their journeys, hear how they're doing in their jobs in healthcare, hear why they chose UMA. For me, that's the most rewarding part of the job.
Well, there you have it, everybody. If you don't know about Ultimate Medical Academy, then you're not following higher ed the way you should. They've got a great model. They have great outcomes. They're very sophisticated in their data and data analytics, which we didn't even get a chance to talk about. That's an important part of what we do in higher ed. Everybody, here he is, and he's going to be back in just a second. He's Tom Rametta. He's the president of Ultimate Medical Academy, and you just EdUp'd. All right, everybody, we're back with Tom for a quick subscriber-only episode. Tom, we talked a lot about a lot of things today. I do want to I transitioned at the end of the main episode into data analytics. I want to talk about that because I know the sophistication that you've operated with. Can you just give us a little bit of insight and the operation, so to speak, how you track things, how you look at data, how reporting and dashboarding and following these students really through their journey, even after they complete, because you want to, track the outcomes and so on. Yeah. Give us a little idea of the infrastructure.
So, as I said previously, we have 3,000 team members at UMA, primarily in student support functions. About 20% of that 3,000 are in the shared services, kind of traditional shared services. The rest are all interacting directly with our students in some capacity. That's obviously a very significant investment for the organization, and we have to ensure that we're providing the tools, the data, the insights for those individuals to be as successful as possible. And given that we have 20 plus starts a year, that we have over 20,000 students right now, we have to live on the data. So, that data collection starts from, the moment that they inquire at UMA, where we're collecting, extensive amounts of demographic data. We're using that to, assess what's the right program for them to go in if they aren't very clear about what that is. We're using that information to assess whether we believe they will be initially successful at UMA. And that, we have, extensive data analytics systems. We have a really well-developed and very mature business intelligence team that is fairly large for a school. I worked in other corporate environments where we did not have business analytics and business intelligence teams that were this well developed. It's really our obligation as a nonprofit, as a school, to ensure that we are being as efficient as possible, as fair as possible to our students, in understanding, how the flow of data is working, how we are using that data to assess their progress and where they need help. We use the data to help direct our efforts around learner support. We use that data to help direct our efforts around placing our students. There's, at my level in the organization, I'm primarily looking at, probably anywhere from 20 to 30 different metrics every day on kind of a dashboard or a series of reports that, give me a pulse on the health of the organization. That could be from student enrollment through to our retention efforts, onto even something, if there's, certain trends in certain classes, right? Students seem to be struggling in this class. You can spot that pretty easily based on the reporting. And then ultimately, our placement rates is kind of like the penultimate measure of success for our students. And I look at those very closely as well through data analytics.
I just, for the audience, I know sometimes when you talk about 21 start dates a year, your brain breaks, especially for those of us that are on 2, maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
You think about things like successful course completion by cohort, or you think about running SAP that many times. You think about R2T4 calcs. You think about all of these different things, and how you can update your model faster instead of having to wait months until you have that data with the next group of students again, and how much that can improve your model. Even though it breaks your brain up front, when you have a sophistication, you can move the business along faster, which has been a huge part of your success at UMA, is just, step by step, minute by minute, day by day improvement, incremental.
Well, we did it really out of sheer necessity because of the volume. We couldn't keep scaling the employee population at the rate we were scaling it. It didn't make sense. Even if we could have and find the people that were capable of doing that work, it wasn't the right thing to do in terms of the efficiency of the organization. So you start making those investments, transitioning from a lot of human interaction and human intervention to less of that, because it's more focused. It's more focused by the data. It's more timely. You are focusing on those students who most need your support versus kind of doing a blanket outreach to all the students. Those R2T4 calculations, those SAP calculations, those are critical. As a Title IV recipient, you got to treat those things as sacred. And we do, and we have a really mature and sort of well-organized team that supports us in that front. But then we audit the heck out of it as well. And it's not a perfect science, but if we see issues, we fix them immediately.
Right.
And we take that responsibility really seriously, particularly on the compliance side.
Well, Tom, this has been incredible, my friend. I got to tell you, I have so much respect for the school, for what you all do. for just training the healthcare workers. I think it's so critical. My eyes are always on UMA as a model for how to do this just a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you coming on. I hope you had a good time too.
I did have a good time, Joe. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure meeting you, and certainly wish you the best and keep spreading the good word.
Will do, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is one more time. The crowd can't stop. He's Tom Rametta. He is the president at Ultimate Medical Academy. And ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd.
Stay ahead of the conversation in higher ed. Get early, ad-free access, and exclusive leadership content by supporting Elvin and Joe. $5.99 per month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or gift a subscription at edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com.